Welcome to the Real Comic Heroes Podcast. Your adventure into the world of comic book movies starts here.
Greetings, citizens, and welcome to another adventure of the Real Comic Heroes Podcast. My name's Travis, and no Patrick this episode. He was all set to record with us and pinched a nerve in his neck, and so I know what that's like, and I wish him the best. But you're weak, Patrick. I'm joined by George Hendricks from Mogwai Minute and several other things that he'll plug probably at the end.
I have old stuff and something new in the works I want to throw out there in a little bit. But
nice.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me, Travis.
Yeah, man. It's been a long time coming.
It's like a audience guys, not a multiple. There's not more than one Travis over here.
That could be.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Dark City. What can you tell me about seeing this, or what's your history with Dark City?
I'm gonna straight up say I thought I saw this back in on video. I used to work at a video store back in the late 90s, so I saw everything that came out. And I rented this, and I apparently only saw about 25 minutes of this movie because I got into it the other night, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is nuts!" And I'm like, I don't remember any of this, so either I slept the whole time or I didn't watch as much of it as I thought I did.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this is basically my first viewing.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you did the director's cut.
I did the director's cut, and we'll go into how we know that in a little while.
Yeah.
But, so I've never seen the theatrical release or whatever.
Okay.
So I'm not really sure how to. I mean, I'm sure you have the compare and contrast, but I definitely have notes on the director's cut.
Cool. Yeah. I had never seen this before. When I posted the trailer for this with the last episode, the trailer was very familiar to me. So I think that I'm guessing it was the Spawn VHS probably had this trailer ahead of it. They were both New Line.
Yeah. There's a lot of similarities between the two as far as tone. Yeah. And I can understand you recognizing the trailer because there's some iconic imagery and maybe not even iconic, but unforgettable imagery in the trailer.
Yeah. So that you're seeing that, I was like, okay, this is that movie that I never would have at that age when I was watching Spawn. I never would have cared about seeing this. And it was just a movie that never flew across my radar or, popped into my head to maybe I should go check that out. It's just not a movie that was present, in my life in any way. The way it ended up on this list of ours, we had, former guest of the show, Riley Silverman. She was on for our Batman and Robin episode, and in preparation for getting her on for that episode, she said she looked at our list and said, "Oh, you don't have Dark City on here," and I was like, "No, should we?" And so she recommended it, and that's why it's here. So shout out to Riley for suggesting it, and I'm glad that we ended up looking at it. So
was this based on anything prior?
I couldn't find any instance of a comic book or anything.
Or graphic novel, although this screams every frame of this looks like a graphic novel.
It looks like a French graphic novel, or something like,
Yes. It's very stylized, very intentional.
So the writer-director Alex Proyas, who did The Crow, he started writing this, and he initially went at it from he wanted to make the noir thriller set, obviously inspired by 30s, 40s, 50s era detective thrillers. And his first version was going to be more about the detective character Bumstead, and following him around. And then I think when I don't have the other writer's name in front of me, there was another writer and then David S. Goyer who they brought in as well, because they were impressed with the Blade script that they had read around this time. So once the three of them were working on this, then it became a little bit more, just they started adding the these odd elements and turning it from a straight up detective story into this, sci-fi
Yeah.
story with obviously a detective angle.
It's very, like I said, it's very Sam Spade, very
Yeah.
yeah, it's really
Hard-boiled
good.
detective. Yeah.
But the detective aspect, I'm actually glad they kind of like dialed that down, because you see so much noir that is detective focused.
Yeah.
So having this be the protagonist, antagonist, you don't know when you first start watching what's the deal,
Yeah.
messing with that
It's
perception of reality,
it's
instead of like it being
yeah.
like, oh, I'm hitting the pavement, talk to dames in order to figure out the crime.
Yeah. It's fun to follow a character who has amnesia, who doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he's done. He wakes up in a hotel room and there's a dead woman there, and he doesn't
Yep.
know if he killed her. So that's a fun, interesting way to jump into a story like this. So yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, Dark City walked so Memento could run.
And the Matrix and
Yeah, a lot of that. There's a lot of elements from like a really
mhm.
solid later sci-fi movies in this. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I so initially I watched the the theatrical version. That's just the version that when you rent it through Apple, you just get the theatrical. So I honestly didn't know there was a director's cut until after I'd watched it. And as I was watching it, it's funny, George and I are in a group chat with several other people, former guests of the show and everything. And listener Jeff even said, so do you, with a movie that's brand new to you, do you watch it once and then go back and watch it again and take notes? And I said, no, generally I just watch it the one time and I pause a lot and take notes. And as I was watching this, I thought I was like 16 minutes into the movie and I already had 4 pages of notes. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
going to take me all night to get through if I'm going at this pace. And so I decided, like, no, you know what? This is a brand new thing for me. I'm going to stop taking notes. I'm going to finish watching the movie, just sit down and just watch it. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. I really, really like this movie. And so then coming back to it a couple days later, and I ended up watching the director's cut this time. The pace was different for me. And I don't know if it's because it's 2 different versions, or if it's just, well, I know all the twists, I know where the movie's going, so maybe it plays a
It might
little
be that, but
different.
I also think if it's, I mean, I don't know the difference on time, but
Mhm.
also obviously I think the director has a different vision than like how they want to release it to the thing.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to leave a little bit more room to breathe in certain scenes, or
Mhm. And
maybe a
that's a
little bit
big
extra
part of it.
dialogue. Yeah, it's. I mean, I would be surprised if there's more than like 5 extra minutes.
There's 10,
10?
but there's maybe 2 substantial scenes that they've added, and then the rest of it is all sprinkled throughout the movie
Yeah.
with like,
Couple seconds here
here's
and there.
5
Yeah.
extra seconds, 3:30, whatever.
Like an
So
extra linger, that sort
yeah,
of thing. Yeah.
exactly. So
Which I
that's
like that. I like it when like a movie can
yeah.
breathe. And now that we've been conditioned by Marvel to expect a
Mhm.
2.5, 3 hour monster,
Right.
this coming in at like what, 200 minutes?
What was it? It was 100 for the theatrical and 111 for
Yeah. For the
directors. Yeah.
director's cut. And yeah, this was like a quick sit.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like still getting all that atmosphere, still getting
Mhm.
all that focus, but I just honestly, and also it moves pretty
It
quickly.
does. It really
It
does.
goes, I mean, I know we want to get into it, but there's
Mm.
like a murder and like boobs and butt within the first 5 minutes of this movie. I mean, I was
Yeah.
like, was this made in 1988 or 1998?
Yeah.
Because this is like got that 80s like vibe to it, about like, let's just throw in some nudity here and there.
Yeah.
There we go.
But I like
I
it's
can't
not.
remember the last time I've seen a mainstream movie that's had this much nudity in it.
Oh, I didn't think there was a lot.
Well, maybe I was just not expecting any. So there was 3 or
Sure.
4 scenes where I was like,
Okay.
okay,
Fair.
all right, we're doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. The right off the bat, I guess the big difference in the 2 movies, the studio didn't think that this movie was going to play super well with an audience, and so they asked the director, "Can you do a voiceover at the beginning of the movie,
Ooh.
establish a little bit of what's
They
going
went the
on,
Dune route. Ouch.
what this world is?" So in my initial viewing, it starts with like, starry sky that we pan down, and you hear Kiefer Sutherland's voice saying something about like when first there was darkness and then the strangers came. They're as old as time and they have the ability to alter reality at will. And they call this ability tuning. So that's basically the setup that they give you. And it talks about how their planet, I think, was dying and they needed a new home and they found our little blue world or something like that. So
That was
that's
all
what
in
it
the
gives you.
voiceover.
Yeah.
Oh my! I am so glad I didn't watch that version. I am allergic, like anaphylactically allergic to spoilers, and I feel like every one of those bits you talked about, there was a point in the movie where I remember having that revealed to me, like, "Oh, that's cool," or, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice," and then like just having those beats drop. And had I
Yeah.
known that as a prequel, I mean preamble, it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful.
Gotcha.
Because I think I was halfway through before I realized they were called the Strangers.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were just
I
like
started.
weird Nosferatu looking
Yeah.
motherfuckers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I think I just had the opposite reaction because now I went into the second viewing with like, oh, wait, there's no voiceover to tell me who these people are. And normally, like, I don't necessarily need that in a movie. You know, I do think it is better for the movie to tell me what's going on. I don't need to be spoon fed with stuff like that. But something like this, it was for me, I thought was nice going into it, understanding a little bit more. But I think it's going to be one of those that whichever version you see the first time, that's going to be your version.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't even try to watch spoilers for movies. I mean, not spoilers, trailers for movies I like. So going in
same here.
as
Yeah.
blind as possible was
Yeah.
the perfect way for me to see this movie. And this version was
Right
it was
on.
great, super great.
Right on. The something I definitely want to mention, and it bears mentioning at any point really, but the overall like artistic vision of this, the way that this city looks, the way that the movie's put together, I I fell in love with right away. And it starts off like you're panning down, from like the high skyscrapers all the way down to street level. And it looks like what they've done is taken like construction paper and built like a shadow box and
Yeah.
with all these layers and just you can tell they didn't build a miniature city. They're just going through these kind of flat layers, but it just works. Like it's something I've never seen before in a
Yeah.
movie, certainly. And it has that like reminds me not purely visually, but it reminds me of what they did with Batman the Animated Series. And
Yeah.
like,
That like flat
let's
2D
do
cell.
something different,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's paint everything on black construction paper to start with, and we'll make the sky red and just different things that make the entire look of your show completely different. And yeah, it totally works here. And yeah, throughout the movie you get different looks at the skyline, everything's hazy. Yeah, everything just looks off in a good way.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of like really stylized movies, and I feel like you're talking about construction paper. The intro to this gives this world a sort of a synthetic feel, like it's manufactured, which is kind of like a subtle nod to the
Yeah,
fact that it is manufactured. It might
sure.
be altered reality to make it happen, but this comes from like someone else's mind rather than just like the organic, like the lived inness you get with the city that's been built up from the ground up.
Yeah. I
And
read one of the production something in Wikipedia just under the production notes. They wanted the look and feel of the city to like you never know where you're at. And so this building may be very European inspired. This building may look like you're in New York. This building may, be completely different.
yeah,
Like around every corner, you're in a completely different look and feel and but it's not, it all blends together in the right way. It's just off-putting enough. You just don't know where this takes place. This isn't New York City. It's just the city.
it's actually there's a lot of. It's weird that I kept making these parallels, maybe because it is so stylized, but I kept thinking about Amelie
Okay.
because there's no shot in that movie that is accidental. Everything is like that's Jean-Pierre Junet's like signature. Nothing is left to chance.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not on his storyboard, it doesn't go in the movie.
Okay.
So everything's meticulous, and there's something that felt like that about this. Everything was very like choreographed, but like put in the right places. This just looks like Jean-Pierre Jeunet took a shitload of mescaline and then decided like, okay, now let's make a movie.
We first, again, as I watched it the second time, I don't know exactly what the some of the differences are between the versions, but it opens with Kiefer Sutherland kind of walking around the city, and he I don't know if I love the choices he made in this. I like him in the movie. He's just going for this weird, very German doctor.
He's doing like a Peter Lorre thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I hate it.
Okay.
The only part about this movie I didn't like was Kiefer Sutherland.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go off on the record. Majority of the things he's in, I'm not a fan of him.
Okay.
There's something about his performance. It's like even when he's playing a character that's not this way, there's like a smug smarminess to it, or there's like it's almost like he's saying his lines, but he's not really in the scene. He's just kind of repeating the lines. There's there's a way he acts, and it just always drives me nuts. So like he served his purpose in this. He got where the story needed to go. He played the character he played, but his choices as far as like his like cadence and talking. At one point, he's doing a monologue, and I'm like, his cadence is giving me anxiety.
He talks because it was like this, and I need you to grab this from my hand.
Two words or three words. I will pause, and then I will tell you that this is another part of the story. And it was almost like he had this beat it out like music, and it was so it hit the part of my brain that was just like stop talking.
Right.
So yeah. So I'm with you on those questionable choices, and then some.
Yeah. We open basically the movie kind of you're in a dirty hotel room as the main character wakes up. Rufus, played by Rufus Sewell, who
Rufus Sewell. Man.
What's that?
Baby Rufus Sewell.
Yeah. And so like the way you feel about Kiefer Sutherland is the way I feel about Rufus Sewell. I generally don't like this guy, but in this, he was fantastic. I really dug this character. I like the way he played it. There's a creepy smarminess to most other characters he plays that I just find very off-putting.
I absolutely agree, but there's something about that hint of sinister in him that played in this movie.
Yeah.
Like the same thing that made him so hateable in Knight's Tale, which is only like a couple of years later.
Yeah.
Is like this is what makes the character believable. Like the sort of like questioning, what am I doing? Where am I going? This is reality. Is this reality? And like that sort of edge to him that like he sets him apart from everybody else, which makes him this unique individual.
Yeah.
I think that smarminess is what kind of does that. It that underlying like ick.
Okay. I don't know what worked for me in regards to him in this movie. But yeah, I don't know. But he wakes up in this hotel room. He's naked. He's in a bathtub. He's got a little bit of blood on his head. He stumbles out of the bathtub. And I think at this point the phone rings, or maybe he stumbles out of I can't remember exactly how it plays out, but he gets out of the bathtub, kind of looks around, but eventually gets a phone call. He answers the phone, and it's the doctor played by Kiefer, and it tells him it's kind of that the Morpheus calling Neo and telling him there's agents coming, get out of your office, they're coming to take you. And it's really kind of that scene. It's him telling him that there these people coming after him, and he needs to leave. And as he's on the phone, he looks over, and this is where he sees some legs sticking out from behind I don't know, something. And
after he kills a fish. Well, no, he saves the fish.
He saves the fish.
He saves the fish. That's right.
Knocks over a fish bowl and then puts the fish into the bathtub he was just in. I don't know what that's all about. I never got a payoff to that. It's just why was the fish there? I don't know.
Why is the fish there? I mean, obviously, I guess it was her room, I guess.
No, he was renting it for 3 weeks.
Oh, that's right. I don't know. That's interesting. I guess he just wanted to have a little bit of like hominess to it. So I guess I need somebody to talk to while I'm slowly losing my mind.
It's a detail that I think by the end of the movie you forget. It's immaterial, but then on rewatch, it's like, what is this here for? But
what it shows is that they reference not the fish later,
mhm,
but or maybe it is the fish, but William Hurt's talking about like, you know
yeah,
what? I've met a lot of killers,
mm,
but I haven't met a lot of killers who would brutally murder
right,
a sex worker, but then take time to save a goldfish.
right,
It's just like there's something about that, his like underlying sense of humanity and
hmm,
compassion
yeah,
that goes against this whole subplot of him being this like dark serial killer who's
sure,
brutalizing these sex workers like throughout the town.
right, yeah. So yeah, and he gets a look at this lady. She's laying there on the ground, and at this point, my first time viewing, the her face is obscured enough, and I thought, okay, that's gonna be this is like a weird time shenanigan kind of movie. This is going to be Jennifer Connelly. I just kind of had a feeling like, okay, that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And then so he bugs out, and I think he gets out just ahead of the people who are coming to get him. And the guy, the clerk at the counter, like stops him and says, "Hey, hey man, you got to pay, or your rent's due soon." And he uses a phrase that I've never heard before. He
Cash in the
said,
Barrelhead.
"Cash on the barrelhead." I had to look that
Dolly
up.
Parton's got a whole song about cash on the barrelhead, and
Okay.
it's just a Southern phrase meaning like, you don't get credit. I need your money now. There's no
Yeah.
like buy now, pay later. It's I'm not letting this out of the house until
Right.
you give me the money for it.
I had to look it
Like
up.
like a marketplace transaction.
Right. It literally goes back to like when products and goods would come into port, a barrel of whatever would show up on the dock. You don't get it until you put cash down right
Yeah,
then and there. So
exactly.
so yeah, it gives the our character here a chance to look at the where he signed the whatever the
The
ledger.
register, I think it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, the register. So he learns his name is Jay Murdoch, and goes on his way. But as he like leaves this lobby, people are, or I guess when he first enters the lobby, everyone's just asleep.
Mhm.
People just kind of slumped over wherever they happen to be. So you don't really know what that's all about. But I wanted to point out the strangers, the three people, or I think there's three that come after him.
Yeah, there's the super tall one, there's the creepy
Yeah.
kid one, and then there's Richard O'Brien.
Yeah. The super tall one is Bruce Spence. We've talked about him in two of the Mad Max movies. He's a very distinctive looking gentleman. We'll talk about him again when we do Revenge of the Sith. He's the Utapauan, the gray guy with like the lines that tells
Yeah,
Obi-Wan
gotcha.
where Grievous is. And then we'll talk about him he's in the Matrix, two or three. And then what was the other thing? Oh, he's the mouth of Sauron.
Oh, yeah.
In
Yeah.
the extended versions of Return of the King. And then Richard O'Brien, you mentioned, is known,
Riff Raff.
Riff Raff from Rocky Horror, and I guess is in Flash Gordon. I didn't realize that, but so in a roundabout way, we've talked about him before, I guess.
Also, yeah, and they literally just dropped an article in the Hollywood Reporter about it's just basically like talking to Richard O'Brien about how he struggled with his sexual identity like over his entire life. He's like in his 80s now and still like having issues with it. It's an interesting read if you want to look it up. But just look up Richard O'Brien Hollywood Reporter. It's like it's like the only one out there. Check it out. But yeah, it's funny that we're watching this and he literally that came out like 2 days ago. As far as like timing is pretty cool.
These guys are like vampires, they're all in black. They wear these black hats. They've got, long fingernails, and they're just really creepy, but they have a very vampire quality about them that I dig. And then, Murdoch gets away for the time being. And then I think, transition over to a nightclub where we start to hear some singing, and it depends on which version you watch. The theatrical has all the singing is dubbed by someone named Anita Kelsey, and then in the director's cut, it's Jennifer Connelly singing "Sway with Me." So
that's actually how I found out I was watching the director's cut, because I heard her singing. I'm like, is that Jennifer Connelly singing? It sounds like it. That sounds like her voice. So I looked it up real quick, and then like, oh yeah, if it is her singing, you're watching the director's cut.
Okay.
And I was all about it for this song, but there's a song later on where I was a little bit more questionable about using her audio, because it was A song
Yeah.
she probably didn't know as well. We'll just go with that.
Yeah. I think when he was when Murdoch was at the register, the front desk of the hotel, I think he says he got a message from the automat that they found his wallet. So that's what prompts Murdoch to then go to the automat, which this is a thing I had never heard of before and didn't know. I think I've heard of an automat, or I've heard the word, had no clue what it was. This thing it's big in the 20s.
It's like a room sized vending machine that you go and sit down in.
Yeah, I think it started in Germany, kind of became a popular way to serve food. It's fast food without any real interaction with people.
Yeah. But there's actually like someone back there like cooking and putting food in there and preparing food.
Yeah.
But they never interact. This would be perfect for COVID.
Right. So yeah, this was brand new to me. But apparently it's still enough of a thing. There, like the last one in New York shut down in like 2012, maybe, or something like that.
Okay.
And then they've had like pop-up ones, trendy places trying to recreate some of this, and they're still around, but not, it's not as much a thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're at this nightclub, and Jennifer Connelly gets a note that like, oh, your husband's doctor wants to talk to you. So she goes to visit him. It's just the movie jumps around so much so quickly. It's there's so much to talk about. It's easy to get lost. It's everyone's getting the next like prompt to go to take them the next step. And the one thing I really really like about when we don't know her name at this point, I think, but Jennifer Connelly's character goes to see this doctor, Kiefer Sutherland, Dr. Schreiber. He's got some rats in a maze, and on second viewing, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. The maze is shaped kind of like the city, and it's just it's a nice little thing, little subtle clue that things aren't really what they seem, I guess. I wrote down so much so quickly, because it was all happening so fast. There's a fun scene where Murdoch, now that he knows his name is Jay Murdoch, he walks out into the street or like up to a reflection, and he's just like practicing saying, oh, hey, how's it going? My name's Jason Murdoch. He's trying names.
James, John. He's just like listing J names just to see what sounds
see what
normal.
feels.
Yeah.
If
like,
anything triggers, right. Yeah. He even says John, later on.
Because he has amnesia. It's not really something to like dig into, but for a second when he first started, he was going through that suitcase and he found that postcard. The like postcard he carries with him the entire time. He had a flash to like blue ocean water, and it was daylight, and he was a kid, and then that was it. So he has some residual memory of something, but he doesn't have enough to be like, oh, okay, well, I know who. Yeah, he doesn't know his name.
Yeah. No. So when her name's Emma, Jennifer Connelly, when she goes to visit Dr. Schreiber, Schreiber tells her that he's been working with her husband for several weeks now, just kind of trying to get him through. He says he's a psychiatrist, and he's been working with him to get over the infidelity, the marital problems that they've had. So it's kind of news to her that John would have shared this information. So
spoiler, his name is John.
Yeah, sorry.
We find that out later.
Yeah.
I doubt anybody's going to care.
No.
Well, actually, you learned his name not too long because what was it? He has to show his driver's license for something and sees that it's John once he gets his wallet back.
Yeah, he gets his wallet. He goes to the automat. The guy has put it inside the automat, so he gets it. He's walking out, and
what's like you skip? He puts it in there and it's locked.
Oh,
and this is the first time we get him. It's like, again, this is me going like, just Babe in the Woods watching this movie, and all of a sudden the guy uses his freaking Jedi mind powers to rip the door open and pull his wallet out.
Right.
Because there's cops behind him. He's getting stressed out. There's an anxiety level there. And he just like, and then just like the whole thing busts out. And he like grabs his wallet. But I'm like, did he just, what?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is that?
Seeing that first time, I was like, oh shit, this is a guy has powers kind of movie. I had no clue this was coming. So definitely opened up the possibilities of what this movie was going to be in a big bad way for me. So I can't believe I was about to walk right past that. So he's trying to get out of this automat. You know, two cops came in and they're just kind of like, they're about to stop him, just kind of question him, see where he's going, what he's up to. And this lady pops in that he kind of made eye contact with when he went into the automat, and she saves him here and says, "Oh, glad you're done. Yeah, the two of us were on our way here, or whatever."
Yeah. I
'Cause
have a note that says a cab, even in a nightmare dream world.
This is he meets May, the lady that kind of saves him, and this is Melissa George,
Yep.
Australian actress. You know, she's kind of a that gal. You know, been in a bunch of stuff, but I probably know her best from 30 Days of Night.
I'm gonna say y'all slept on the show Hunted.
Okay.
It was her. She had a star. It was her show. It was her vehicle. She was like a British spy who kind of got burned and was like trying to make her way out of the Middle East while like, you know, just so this like beautiful blonde spy is like trying to like do her thing. It was kind of cheesy, but they took itself seriously. It was enjoyable. I watched the first season and really enjoyed it, but it never got renewed for a second season.
Okay.
If you want to see her just kind of go and stretch her legs as like kind of like a badass, go watch Hunted. I think it's on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, just quickly in one of the many scenes, we meet John Hurt. You know, he's playing this just kind of weathered, a little haggard detective.
He's also playing an accordion, which is
playing an accordion.
It's a beautiful accordion, which was a weird thing that I missed the first time around.
Okay.
So then there's a bit later in the movie where they're referencing that, and I'm like, why the hell is William Hurt riding around in a cop car with an accordion in the backseat?
Yeah.
I totally missed that.
The theatrical version has him, it opens with him playing the accordion, but that's, I think, all of that you ever get the rest of the movie. Like there's no payoff to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't remember there being
in this one. He's like, oh, this is my mother gave me this and I keep it with her to remind me of her.
She recently passed.
He's like, but I can't remember when she gave it to me. There was just a way to tie in, like they don't have any memories beyond like the surface stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So May and John, they head up to May's, you know, little boudoir, like right across the street from the automat. And, you know, you find out, you know, it makes sense. Okay. She's a sex worker. So she's taking him up to her room.
Which I feel is a little presumptuous that she gets up there, starts getting ready to like do the business. And he was like, you just saved me from some cops. I didn't say I needed that level of service. I just appreciated a little, like, you know, looking out. And now she's like taking her clothes off and putting on a robe. And I wrote down a joke about where she asked him his name and he like opens his wallet and he says, it's John. He's like, oh, John. And she goes, ha, that's appropriate, or something like that. And I'm like, I wrote down, haha, sex worker jokes.
That's funny. Here's another big difference between versions. We'll find out later that John decided to go along with this because he earlier woke up in a hotel room with a dead sex worker, and now he's testing himself. Am I going to do that again?
Yeah. So let's see how he in a controlled situation.
Yeah. And so that's his motivation. He sees her and he just decides, no, I can't do this. In the director's cut, he looks over and there's a little girl like hid, kind of chilling behind a curtain, basically, that she lives, you know, here with her mother. And so he understandably gets, you know, not turned off isn't the right word because he's not there for arousal, but you know what I mean? He gets, that's kind of what breaks him of this like idea of can I go through with this? So
what's interesting is my read on this, because only seeing it, this director's cut, never having seen this part before. I got it as he was feeling really weirded out about being up there, but wasn't against the idea of things going a little further with her, but then saw the kid and freaked out and left.
Right.
So later when he talks about, I did it to test myself, that feels like an excuse he made up for going there with her. So that's interesting. Different. It's funny how a slight edit in a cut and everything can change a complete tone and reading of a scene like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting for me watching it and getting to the scene with a kid. I was like, okay, this is going to change a later scene in a big way. Like I couldn't understand, like, why would they have a kid here?
Okay,
That
so
means the later scene must also have deal with this kid,
yeah. So
So
the theatrical release had no kid in the
no
first
kid
scene,
at
and
all.
then she showed up in the second one.
No,
Oh, she wasn't in the second
no
scene?
kid whatsoever in this movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's weird. That's different. That's a
Yeah.
big difference. That's a
Yeah.
big choice.
Yeah. So let's see. At some point, we get like I said, we met John Hurt. He's Detective Bumstead, and he's been called to the original hotel room and gets presented with the sex workers there. He sees the body. At this point, I think they show that her hair is blonde. And at this point, I'm thinking, oh, this is May. Again, I'm
Mhm.
thinking there's some time
Yeah.
stuff going on, and I think, okay, this is going to be Melissa George. It's May. Turns out not to be the case. This is just some one in a series of
Unfortunate
five or
working girl.
six, yeah,
Yeah.
working girls that someone's killing. So eventually, yeah, I realized, okay, my initial read on the movie was completely
It's pretty linear,
off.
except for
Yeah,
the memories
yeah,
and flashbacks, but it's a pretty linear narrative.
yeah. And then as Bumstead is investigating this scene, this other detective just bursts into the scene, and he's a raving lunatic,
Crazy
going
ass
off.
Walensky, man.
Yeah, Walensky, just going crazy. And so they get him out of there, and John Hurt's character says, well, he's been under a lot of stress. This has been a long case, and kind of tries to make some excuses for him. And
Mm-hmm.
and then it's essentially he's now in charge of this case, and he gets all of Walensky's materials on the case. He goes into his office, and it's just full of nonsense. And
Yeah. It's like looks like Walensky's trying to find Pepe Silva. I mean, it's like that insane. It's strings and
exactly like
it's
that.
like the murder boards you see in like serial killer movies. So that's like, okay,
Yeah,
that's how crazy he was.
right. Let's see. Then pretty much right away, Emma visits the police, and she's there to report her husband missing. It's been 3 weeks since she's seen him, doesn't know what he's up to or whatever. And they direct her to Bumstead because they've now pieced together this John Murdoch, or Jay
Mhm.
Murdoch, was at that hotel in that room. So it all kind of, pieces are starting to come together and everything. And you
There's a
realize,
fun little moment in that. Just going back to the hotel for just a second. The initial night clerk
yeah,
is
oh
like,
yeah,
oh, cash on the
yes,
barrelhead. I need the money right now. Or 3 weeks is 3 weeks. And then he gets questioned by the strangers, and he gets told to go to sleep.
yeah,
And then next time we go to the front desk, there's an older black gentleman there who is saying the exact same lines.
yeah,
He's taking his place. He's speaking the exact same words.
yeah.
So if you're not knowing what's going on, the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes of this movie
Yeah.
is some trippy ass shit. It's like Naked Lunch type stuff. It's like really disjointed and dark and graphic, and like there's a lot of going on here.
Yeah. And this is about the time that I stopped taking notes on the theatrical and just so
Just
from
leaned
now
back and
on,
watched it.
yeah, from now on my notes will be from the second time around, but and let's see. So yeah, and like I said, May has a daughter. I wrote down May has a daughter, and that kid's gonna grow up to be Rorschach because
Yeah.
she's growing up with her mom, who's bringing home Johns and
All she
that
needs
sort of thing.
is a traumatic brain injury before she's 17 in order to like just trigger her. She's gonna wind up being a serial killer.
Right.
It's like everything else is there.
He's walking. So John leaves May, like we talked about, and he digs in around in his pocket. He pulls up this postcard again and looks at it, and then looks like up in the sky, and there's a billboard with the same image. It's like, come to visit Shell Beach. And something draws him to actually go climb up to this billboard. I don't know what drives that. There's nothing indicating that, oh, this is a clue and there's going to be something up there that will tell me where to go next. So
I thought it was a stroke of genius on the part of the writers because they made the first chunk of this movie so frenetic and weird that at this point you question no motivations. He's like, I'm going to walk up to this billboard. It's like 20 stories up. I'm going to go to the top of this billboard and walk down this rickety plank to kind of see if there's something going on with this billboard. Why? At this point, you don't question it. You're just like, play on.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's approached by 3 of the strangers, and this time, it might be 4. The numbers vary slightly. It's not always the same exact crew, but it's always Richard O'Brien and Bruce Spence, and then sometimes it's the little creepy kid. Yeah,
creepy kid. Oh,
but
so bad.
Yeah,
I wanted him to boot that kid off. Like, just like, I don't care about the others. Like, just get that kid out of here. He's disturbing me.
Oh God, his teeth later.
Oh, he has like weird dead eyes, and he's a good actor. Like, he is playing the creepiness for a kid. But man, just that whole package is not cool.
So while he's up here on this billboard, he realizes that, I think that they try to put him to sleep, and
he's like, "What are you doing?"
Right. He doesn't fall asleep, and then they realize, oh, he can tune, or he's resistant to us, and he's backed into a corner basically, and he mentally creates a situation that makes one of them fall through, and it's actually Richard O'Brien that falls, and then the next one he manages to make fall through a hole and get tangled up in some ropes, and then one he manages to use the waving arm, the animatronic arm on the billboard, manages to get it to like slice the back of one of them's head.
The back off this guy's head.
And
so then we get this moment where the guy who gets his head cut open dies, and then this weird multi-tentacle like evil jellyfish crawls out of his brain hole, and then kind of like changes color and dies once it gets out in the open.
Right.
But at that point you're going, what the hell was that? Because every time this movie thinks you think like, okay, I figured I got this thing's number. It's like a really nice dark gritty like Maltese Falcon but with nudity. And then all of a sudden it just keeps pivoting and like changing and adding something new, and it really doesn't stop doing that. Like there's you don't get a ton, like there's every couple of scenes you get a new piece of information. You're like, what?
Right.
That's weird.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that it builds in a really nice way, and it sometimes it can be frustrating because he's mostly figured everything out and we're still in the dark completely. So yeah, I really like the way the flow of this movie. I guess
it felt like we were discovering what was going on as he did in a lot of ways. And I love that sense of like that just, I don't know, just that it's almost like it's like choose your own adventure book where all of a sudden you are invested in the story because you are part of it.
At this point there's a scene with between Emma and Detective Bumstead, and they're talking about John, and he's telling her that all these women have been killed, and she asks, or he gives her a list and says that there have been some murders, and she says which one, and he kind of laughs and is like all of them, and so he lets her know that he thinks it's her husband that's doing this and everything, and but eventually gives her a ride home, and then so she's now at her apartment, and she comes home and John's there. Like he's figured out where he lives. Well, I guess he's got his wallet, so he figures out where he lives. He's got his keys, and they have their first scene together, and I really like the way these two, they have good chemistry. I think
I was about to say, yeah, exactly. They have great chemistry because I believe them as whatever they were trying to tell us the couple is, but I'm like, I buy that 100%. I think that's on screen together.
Part of what I like about him in this movie is that I buy that these two are in love, and I think that's probably what does it for me. And
this is only like Jennifer Connelly's like what, third or fourth movie?
I don't know, because Labyrinth was 84.
Yeah,
maybe
something like that.
It's interesting. It's weird because she still has that baby face that she had, when she did Labyrinth. So in some scenes, like she still looked like a kid. And then like when she's singing in the nightclub, she's got a little bit more makeup on, and she obviously looks more adult. But yeah, it's interesting. But keep in mind, like 2 years from now, she's going to be doing Requiem for a Dream, so
Wow, that movie was only
2000.
2000.
Yeah.
Ugh, I hated that movie.
Oh, okay.
Just by the way, that movie traumatized me so hard in so many
I've
ways.
always said it's one of the best movies I never want to watch again.
I said, like, I saw that once, I will never
Yeah.
do it again.
Yeah.
Never. And my friend Jesse, who suggested it at the we were at like a cabin in the woods. It was snowing, just having a good time.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, I got a movie we can watch."
Oh man, that'll bring the mood down.
Oh my god! I'm like, Jesse, you
Jesus.
can never pick another movie again. Your privileges are revoked.
Yeah.
We were thinking like Princess Bride. You brought out Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, man.
Can you see the difference?
This is where John just outright, they talk about, sorry, let me back up. She asks if this is all his punishment for her. Like, are you punishing me by being gone the last 3 weeks, and wondering what that's all about? And he doesn't understand because he's amnesiac, so he doesn't know what the hell's going on. And she explains, like, I guess he gets his point across that it doesn't know who he is, doesn't know who she is. And so she flat out tells him, like, I had an affair and you left. And so he explains, well, tonight I just came from, I went to this sex worker's place to see if, or maybe something has been said at this point about the girls being killed. And so he tells her, I went there to see if I would do it. And I didn't, and I left. So
just a quick little touch back on Jennifer Connelly before everyone listening to the show is like, no, she was in a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
Labyrinth was 86.
Okay.
And she had
what was the one with
probably
her
one
and,
or two movies every year until
Okay.
1998 when she did this.
Okay.
That girl worked. So she probably had like almost a dozen to maybe almost 20 movies in between there and there.
Yeah.
So she stayed busy.
Understandable. She's great. Let's see.
Because we also got about the Rocketeers in there.
Oh, right. Of course.
Yeah, right in there.
Shit.
Boom.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim.
We covered it and I forgot about that. But let's see. At this point, I realized that all the characters are kind of just playing, like John Hurt is kind of just playing a stereotype of a hard-boiled detective.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Connelly is playing the nightclub singer, and he, not so much with
the strange wife / nightclub singer /
yeah. So there's a couple characters who are, I guess just those two are like, they're just playing that surface level, and it makes sense because at their core, that's not who they are. So I like that I don't know if it's intentional, but it seems like they're not committed to these characters, if that makes sense. But
they're just saying
for
the
me,
lines,
it worked for the movie.
Purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, at this point in the movie, I'm not saying anything is unintentional. At this, like, there's no like,
that's very possible.
That was a happy accident. It was like, this is meticulously planned. Everything seems, because especially then, like, he goes on and makes The Crow, which is another one of those movies that is just start to finish, like it's out there. It's been laid down.
Sure.
It's been, he's a very like Junet-esque like kind of director.
Yeah, because we just talked about Alien 4 at Resurrection, and that was Junet, and I would put Dark City and Alien Resurrection in a similar, vibe and look and feel and tone. Yeah. Let's see. At this point, Murdoch, he realizes that the detective has been there the entire time. He needs to get out of there. He followed Emma up here, kind of, I think, suspecting that John might be here. And so they have a little altercation, and this is one of the next time that John uses his powers to escape. He creates a doorway.
Yeah,
it
goes from like
happens,
a little telekinesis and then like some manipulation and boards to materializing a fully functioning door in a brick wall, walking through, shutting it, and it goes away again. Like, that is a different level of ability you have, sir.
Yeah. And ends up in a cab and driving away, and the only place that he can think of to go is this Shell Beach. So he asks the cabbie, like, hey, do you know how to get there? And the cabbie's like, oh yeah, me and the missus went there for our honeymoon. And he's like, I think it's like down Main Street, and I don't know, maybe it's down this street. And realizes like he doesn't remember how to get there. So that's like one of the first instances of someone not knowing information or not, not know specifically this place. They don't know how to get there. So
Yeah, something is obvious they should know and they don't.
yeah,
And then you're like, why?
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
question mark keeps popping up.
At a certain point, we look back at Dr. Schreiber, and he's just sitting in a pool like a real creep. And
Yep. Just
you,
head down, head up, just like floating.
yep. And the pool closed, and then one of the Richard O'Brien's stranger shows up and confronts Schreiber and says, we don't like moisture. So that right away, it's like, oh, okay, that makes sense why this guy would hang around a pool.
It's like you and Ben Shapiro, buddy.
I kind of wish that the notion that these guys are either afraid of moisture, don't like it, maybe it hurts them, it seems weird because they look like they're constantly damp. Their look, they're all black and pale. They look like they're always wet anyways.
That's because they look like they live in a cave, like
exactly
in a deep dark cave system, and they just have to come out and put on clothes on occasion. They look very like unsettlingly like creature-esque. For them to be human being looking, they look like so alien, which is a brilliant choice.
Sure. Yeah, they have this interaction, and it's basically his name's Mr. Hand. We'll learn.
He's got a hand, then got Mr. Book, and then Mr.
Yeah, they're all
like Mr.
named
something
like objects or
Mr. Pencil.
So he is just kind of telling or wondering why is he different? And Schreiber explains like sometimes maybe he's evolved a little bit. Maybe, sometimes they're just aberrations and sometimes they wake up, and he explains that he was about to put him to sleep and he woke up mid process and freaked out. And that's why, he's running around awake when everyone else is asleep. So,
yeah.
And, we get Bumstead goes to visit Walensky and just kind of checks in on that crazy former kind of colleague and tries to get some information from him, but Eddie is just completely batshit and going on and on about things not being the same night to night, and that woman out there, that's not my wife. And so you're getting more of these pieces of this puzzle, and more importantly, Bumstead is learning more and more, and figuring some stuff out, but still completely in the dark, but knowing that something's off.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I like this scene because it's one of those classic interactions where the crazy nut job actually knows what's going on.
Sure.
And him telling this makes him sound like he's insane.
Yeah.
And so like the straight edge, like, the logical, by the book guy gets to like this massive dose of nut job. And he's like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But we all know at this point, this is exactly how it is. And we got to watch him go from that point to actually believing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I like that journey. I think that might be one of my favorite parts of the movie is Bumstead's journey of acceptance and what's going on here. So it'll be fun to talk about that as that progresses. But then we get one of my favorite scenes is that first time we go underground and we see the strangers and where they live and what they're doing. And then they all congregate, and the leader says to shut it down, or
that's Mr. Book.
Yes.
I remember that.
To shut it down, or I forget what he says. It might be shut it down.
Yeah, because they're doing now is for the time for the tuning.
Yes.
Capital T.
This is when they systematically or automatically, hydromatically, put everyone in the city to sleep. And so it's interesting because like cars don't wreck into each other. Everyone just comes to a gradual stop. The trains come to a gradual stop. Like no one is in mortal danger. It seems they're
except
all just
for the couple they introduce with the horrible ADR. Their mouths barely match up to what they're saying.
Interestingly, I didn't find that to be the case in the theatrical. I thought it played. Now maybe this is just my memory of it, but it didn't stand out as being bad ADR in the theatrical. But then I noticed it in the
it was aggressive in the director's cut. Like I was like, this is like a BLR video
Yeah.
where they're like saying words that kind of sound with how their mouths are moving.
Yeah.
They were in mortal danger because when they fell asleep, they went face first into their soup.
Yeah, they did.
And there was a great little moment because like they're like poor and like, you know, very down. And he's like, boss said he'd get me on the day shift, but he got me working nights, and just very working class like issues in the big city. And this whole transition is cool because we find out that it isn't just like, okay, reset it. These people build buildings, like expand rooms, like buildings go from the ground up in seconds, like inflatables.
They go from a shanty that they're living in, this specific couple, into a mansion, a
palatial mansion. And they're at like opposite ends of this very long table. And now they're dressed in a tuxedo and a very high society. And now they're having a question about like, he's lied to me 3 times at work. I think I've got to let him go.
Should I fire Fredericks, or, you know?
Yes, darling, you should. He deserves it. You know, those sort of like
those people, those
light
assholes.
Conversations about like firing your workers.
Yeah.
So this whole section of the tuning, it shows a lot.
Oh, it
takes the plot to another level.
For sure. I've never seen anything like this before. The buildings, like you said, are morphing out of nothing, and they're literally carrying people from one. They'll take a guy out of a cab and they'll take him and put him in a barbershop chair, and they'll redress him, and they bring new clothes to this couple, the poor couple turned rich couple, which I find really funny that they can build buildings out of nothing, but they can't just snap their fingers and redress the people into new clothes. You know, I find that
they enjoy
really
it.
odd.
They enjoy that part. That's the handcrafted
fair. That's
aspect.
Fair.
Like, no, I made this suit. I'm gonna put this on this guy.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see. And part of this is really great because, it's all great, but while this is happening, John is running around the city, you know, aware, like watching all this, taking it all in, hiding in the shadows. And then he starts to, when it first happens, he freaks out because people are asleep and he's trying to like, wake up. And it reminded me of Vanilla Sky when Tom Cruise wakes up and goes out and no one's in the city. Like, and this is Times Square. They managed to empty out Times Square.
So that was during
shot. COVID. Yeah, exactly. But it was super effective. Just this frantic panic that John is going through that totally works. Let's see.
I thought that was a really cool ethical moment for him, because if he was this crazy serial killer guy, he probably would have been like, cool, I can do what I want. I'm gonna touch some boobs and steal some money and like, you know, kind of like taking advantage of this like isolation. But he's like trying to wake everybody up and he's freaking out. So that's just another layer to the idea that like he's not who we think he's supposed to be, or we're being told he's supposed to be.
Right. No, that's a interesting, hadn't thought about that at all, but I like that.
Yeah, I just came up with it.
I think the last thing I would say about this cityscape kind of changing is like some of it is being done with like kind of early, or I guess it's not early because this is 98, but it feels like that early CGI where like buildings morph into buildings. Some of it's being done with miniatures.
Yeah,
it's like it's a blend of different things.
There's a big hodgepodge of effects and that sort of stuff. It's very ILM back in the day, where it's like, you just kind of what works, like just make it work, you know.
And I think it all works. I mean, I think it serves this movie. You know, it wouldn't work if we were trying to do a Star Wars, you know. But the second viewing of mine, I start to see Schreiber in a different light. And we'll get into kind of some of what he does and his motivations towards the end of the movie. But when he is basically like he's confronted by John at this point, because all the city changing has just been finished, and John comes out of the shadows and approaches Dr. Schreiber, and he just calls him out, you know, and asks him what the hell's going on, and confronts him about it. And Schreiber says, like, I'm trying to help you. You know, I'm trying to, like, I'm on your side. And this point, or the second time around, like, I think he's genuine.
Yeah. The first time.
Interesting.
I mean, I questioned it up until I stopped questioning it. But it was like, for the most of the movie, it was like, he's just pulling one on him.
Yeah. He's that type of character who I just assumed was sniveling and would say anything to save himself. But yeah, it was interesting.
He's a real Judas goat.
Yeah, it was just odd to feel differently about a character who I just assumed was very one note,
Yeah.
So we see Emma sing again, but I don't really think there's much
That
to
was
be made.
that was not good.
Yeah,
I
the only
love Jennifer
thing,
Connelly. That was bad. That was bad singing. It was
yeah,
like weird and like off pitch a lot of times, and it was
yeah,
like, you crushed that first song. This is you too. What?
yeah. The
Why?
only notable thing I think with that performance is that Bumstead is there, and it almost I could see setting up some kind of like, is he into her? But
There was a
we
little
never,
bit of like possible romantic tension on his
yeah,
part, like not from her part. She seemed very
right,
focused on John, but he's like, he got told earlier, like, oh, you live a very lonely life, and he kind of make him go like, she's pretty pretty.
yeah.
Not bad, not bad.
It was just for some reason it just felt unnecessary. I didn't need to have him sitting back at the bar watching her sing, because that feels like, what is this accomplishing?
Also,
Unless
but
you're
also to look at it as like, he's being this caricature of whatever he's being. Like, there might be residual things coming through where he's got
yeah,
more of a, that sort of thing. He's not nearly as robotic as he comes
right.
across in this.
That's possible.
Yeah.
There's another underground layer, sort of city planning, and they're talking about what they're going to change that night. And it's an instance where you kind of see a mock-up of the city, and this is kind of a big like clue. Like, they show what their mock-up of the city looks like, and if you pay attention, that's what the real city looks like. So it's just kind of this floating thing that's in the middle of the room that, at first viewing, like, you just think, oh, okay, this is just a scale, version, but it kind of is a giveaway. So
And they're also manufacturing things like, it was like, hey, I need a bunch of memories and I need like 3 high school graduations, and you see them like going through and creating documents, and I'm like, I need to go to, like, if I want a fake passport, I go to the strangers, because they can just crank it out real quick. It's gonna look real good. So they're like, there's this wholesale, large scale like manufacturing of identities, and then they talk about memories and locations. I already see that they're changing things, so they're starting to like basically like lay out what's going on here, not per se say it, but just show more or less the process of what they're doing, and then they'll explain the rest later.
Yeah. Takes a lot of work. Like, every night they got to do all this stuff, and it's really odd. And Schreiber's there, and he's mixing up cocktails to make memories and do all this weird science shit. And there's a baby David Wenham is his like assistant.
The thought that was toady guy.
Yeah, that was a little odd.
Like bald and pale.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, at this point, they know they need to find John, because they know that he's got too much power to be running around, getting in their way. And they come up with this really interesting plan to take John's memories and implant them into Mr. Hand, kind of the lead henchman.
Everyone's like freaking out. It's like, no, that's never worked. The last time was disastrous. And they just like freaking out about it. He's like, I'm going to do it. You've never done it for me. And then very Richard O'Brien. And then just jams a syringe at his forehead and boom.
Yeah, and now he plays it, and now he's suddenly a different character. He is, because this is the manufactured killer version of John that they want, that they wanted to implant him with. And this is where, once they inject it, you start to kind of go into his mind and see some of the memories. And this is where you learn John is the killer. At least this version of John. If he would have been implanted with this, he flat out is the one who's been killing all these women. So that, I think, is a super interesting way to go about this, because now it makes Mr. Hand more dangerous than he already was, because he's, on top of being a stranger, he's also homicidal. Really interesting, I think, way to ratchet up your bad guy in a way. And so now he's on the loose, and his first, I think, place that they go is to visit May. And
does not end well.
No, And yeah, you don't see the kid here at all. But you can tell they're about to torture May for information. I think they're looking for, I don't know what they expect to get from her now that I'm thinking about it, but just, I don't know, maybe,
I mean, there could be part of like a oh, I saw the whole thing, eyewitness,
yeah.
traumatized child type vibe. But also, I think the child aspect just gives Emma a chance to be like really like humanized and like because she's very kind of like almost cold a lot of the times, and this time she's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, there's a child here. Oh, come here, and then she's got a lot of like angst about letting her go, and like
Yeah.
there's a very nurturing vibe to her in this
Hmm.
situation, and I think they're just trying to portray more like loving side to her because she was coming
Yeah.
across as so intense and like,
Yeah.
what are you saying about my husband? Very like femme fatale type almost
Sure.
of the delivery.
Yeah. I could see a version of this where, maybe she was in on it the entire time. I could see a draft where they were like, well, maybe, if you want to play into that femme fatale, you know, aspect of it. But I'm glad they don't do that. But
Yeah.
let's see. John, at this point, he's kind of just trying new things. He goes on a train. He's just trying to get out of the city. He figures maybe the train will take me out of town. And then, of course, he gets to the last stop and a train heading to the beach zips right past him. And someone tells him, oh,
Yep.
that's the
The
express,
express. Oh, you got to get the express train, and then you
Yeah.
can't catch the express train.
Yeah. So, and
It's
then he
like in order to
meets,
sign up for this government thing, you have to go to the website, but the website doesn't work.
yeah.
Flashbacks.
He meets Walensky here on the platform, who pretty much, straight out tells him like, yeah, I'm like you. I can, I didn't fall asleep one time and now I'm stuck here. And
Yeah, I don't think he can't tune, but
he,
he's
no,
one of the
no.
few. He's one of those who did not like succumb to the sleep
Right.
spell.
Yeah. And so he's frustrated to the point where his only way out is to throw himself in front of a train. So,
Yeah, which he does.
yeah. One big difference that I noticed at this point, Mr. Hand now as a sort of as proto John or whatever, like with John's memories, goes to this pier and meets Emma. Just
Yeah,
has a conversation with her, and this is different. The two versions of this are a little bit different. In the theatrical, he just kind of walks up to her and kind of quotes something that John once said about, I used to come here all the time or something like that, in a specific way that John would have said it. And so that initiates conversation between the two of them. But in the director's cut, he opens the conversation with, what if every night the city, basically telling her what,
yeah.
is actually going on, but presenting it in just a vague enough way that she's like, oh, wouldn't that be nice if we didn't know that we were being manipulated or something like that. So just an interesting little cut there, I guess. Nothing major, but
Yeah, I like how they let all the major characters in this play a little
mm,
bit. They all have a little bit of interaction. There's a scene with this. Not
yeah,
just have like you have like three characters that exist in tandem of each other, like well, isolation. They're all siloed up and they have their own storylines. I like
yeah,
how they kind of intersperse everybody. Like
right,
this conversation with Yasu is really cool, and there's a sense of menace there because you're afraid that
yeah.
something's going to happen to her.
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
absolutely,
and so like there's it's a lot going on. I like it.
yeah. Um, uh, it was struck me as a little odd that I think John reaches back into his pocket and pulls out the postcard, and this time flips it over and reads the
Oh, like oh, by the way, these things
yeah,
have backs.
there's information on here. That leads him to looking into his uncle,
Carl.
Uncle Carl, who used to run like some kind of old aquarium kind of place. So he goes there and interacts with his uncle, and his uncle is from the Fifth Element. He's the one shouting Aziz light.
Oh,
So that's this guy.
gotcha.
Um, and you don't, we learned that some things about John's childhood. He learns some things about himself as a child. He sees old photos of him as a child. And then he sees one slide that his uncle is showing him where he's got a scar on his arm. And when present day John looks at his arm, the scar is not there.
Yeah.
And so then he flips out and he's like, well, that means none of this is real. So that is upsetting enough, I think, for Carl, who then will call Emma and say, hey, John's here. You might want to come get him. And at this point, Emma and Bumstead are still working together to try and
Yeah.
find, so at least everything kind of converges now at this point to everyone's headed to Carl's. And in between there, that's when Emma and Bumstead had gone to Maze and found the kid and
Yeah.
did that whole thing. And Bumstead finds this drawing that the kid had been making of the strangers. And so that's
Again,
kind of
like tying into the whole, like she saw the whole thing because she's
yes.
got 3 strangers. They all have knives. They're all
Yeah.
going after her. They're screaming. It's very
Yeah.
obvious that this was not one person that took care of this.
Right. And I wish that there had been one piece of connective tissue here when Bumstead went to visit Walensky in his home and he was scribbling on the walls. I wish Walensky had done some kind of crude drawing of 3 men dressed in black, just enough to tie in, like, okay, there's like it's because I don't know what this tells Bumstead. Like a kid drawing a picture of some scary people, like that doesn't really that shouldn't be a red flag. I mean, it is because it's disturbing, but there's nothing there to tie. If there was something to tie the two together, then
I think in the fact that it was drawn in a situation where her mother was just murdered in the next room.
That's fair.
They're like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure these tie together.
Okay.
I'm just like, maybe this is a chain of custody. We can't use this in court, but we can sure as hell have some inferences from the fact that she has this drawing and she's like butchered in the next room.
Yeah. The nice thing,
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Okay. What I like that it really sets up is that once Bumstead and Emma kind of come to find John, they get there and they find that, the 3 strangers are coming after John, and it's instant enough that it's like, okay, get in, we got to get out of here. So I like that, that Bumstead is quick enough to realize, okay, these guys are bad news. Here's John. I've been after him, but I'm going to save him in this instance because we need to get out of here. But
I always love it when the detective who's like chasing the guy, like all Les Mis style, like has that moment of clarity, and he's like, oh no, this guy's actually doing good, or he's not the bad guy, and they team up together. And I'm a sucker for that plot point. I always enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I was hoping he would come around to that point.
Sure.
And he did. Payoff, big payoff.
And there's definitely a fun action scene kind of leading up to him being chased by these guys. He's trying to get out of Carl's place, and this is where they start to the city is frozen, and they're changing everything, and now they're changing all the buildings around Carl's, and John's trying to get away. So there's a nice like chase sequence here.
That utilizes the elements, like the buildings changing. Oh, they're going up the fire escape. Oh, this building's coming to crush the fire escape.
Yeah.
So they get off of it just in time for a stranger to get smushed between the buildings.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that as powerful as these beings seem to be, they can still just take a bullet in the head and go down.
Yeah, they're not invincible.
They're vulnerable. They can get hurt, not pretty easily. So I like that they left that, because if they're just like taking bullets and like the agents in the Matrix, it was like, that's not a lot of fun. Like there's not a lot of like pushback that the people can do. You're just like this against this overwhelming force. Like this is like you can actually stand your ground.
Yeah. What I love about this, there's a nice exposition scene, I think probably on the roof, between Mr. Hand and John, and they just get to talk to each other about what is all this. And Mr. Hand tells John that they're trying to be more human. That's why they do all this. They try to see what boundaries they can push with us, they're experimenting, and he even says, and I think I either missed this in the theatrical or it wasn't there, but he says that they use the bodies of your dead as
I was about to point that
hosts.
out because at this point you think the strangers are the bad guys, and then you get to this point after seeing the weird evil jellyfish come out of the guy's head on the billboard. Oh, okay, they're like hitchhikers. Like the jellyfish are the bad guys, and these are just like vessels.
Right.
Okay, I love how like that just again changes that dynamic of the plot. It's like, well, now we're going in a totally different direction.
I think watching it the second time, the cynical part of me was like, interesting that we've only seen white dudes as the strangers. So you're saying that there are no black women who have been, who've died
Yeah.
and can be hosts. Like aesthetically, if you're going for a bunch of people dressed in black, all pale and white, I get it.
The contrast. Maybe the process like drains all the melanin from their skin.
That could be. I could buy that.
But then you don't see anybody with like
no
black
women
features,
though
like
either.
like the heavier,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
noses and the things that are distinctive to the So
Which the same could be said if the bodies get drained of, I could see like the body's shedding any fat tissue or whatever, and they just become these gaunt, stick figures. That I'd buy that. So I don't know, just
or maybe I mean, there's always the chance that the strangers are just really racist.
that could be. Yeah.
I think maybe that's it, personally.
But no, I really dig the aspect that they were just dead bodies that they've inhabited, because I'm pretty sure you don't get that in the theatrical.
Yeah, that was a cool little thing. Again, I'm glad I watched the director's cut.
Yeah. Like I said before, this is when Bumstead and Emma show up for the save. They jump. John jumps in the car, and Bumstead's able to see, like, okay, yeah, he's being chased by 3 guys with knives that look just like the cartoon that the kid drew. So he's able to understand a little further now. And then it cuts to like an interrogation scene that I think Bumstead's coming at John, I think a little harsh, like a little too aggressive, given how he comes around enough, but he's open to this, like, okay, things are different, but he's still like almost like he's still thinking John is the killer. It plays.
He comes at him.
He
comes at him harder than Dumbledore comes after Harry and the Goblet of Fire.
Harry Potter, what did you do?
The Goblet of Fire. But I could also see that as him sort of like he's kind of trying to keep his reins on his like sanity a little bit, and so he knows interrogation. He's just going to he's finally got this guy. Like, I'm just going to grill him because maybe he knows more information than he's letting on, and so he's like, I just want more, or I'm trying to like get back a sense of normalcy and control. But then he is like, okay, all right, I get it. Yeah. What's going on here? And so then they like sort of like officially team up.
Yeah, I love the beat where he brings up the Shell Beach. He's like, hey, have you ever been to Shell Beach? I was like, oh yeah, of course. Like, how do you get there? He's like, oh well, that's odd. And he pushes it, presses him again. Like, how do you get there? He's like, just give me a second. Let me think about it. He's like, huh. And then he asks him, I think another great question is, when's the last time you did anything in the daytime? And Bumstead's like,
he's like, I've been awake for hours and hours and hours, and it is midnight the whole time.
Yeah. So I really like that. And I think it's a little odd at this point that he John levitates this book that he's been carrying around, just enough to prove, like, okay, I have powers. Yeah, explain that. Now we're on, sort of equal footing here. We both know weird things are happening. And then
strange things are afoot.
Yeah. And then it cuts to John like in handcuffs, or he may have already been in handcuffs, but he gets to go, talk to Emma through the glass. And I think that is a little odd to let him go do that after he's displayed powers, but regardless, it's a great scene that we get between him and
Emma. They're like, I don't know you, but I still love you. I don't know why that is, because you can't fake love. There's a lot of like, moments about humanity and what defines our souls and what defines us as like human beings and individuals and connects us. And there was a lot of really nice philosophical beats in this movie as well.
Yeah.
And then, although I thought it was kind of weird that like he must have a problem with glass, because he could have just like made a hole in the glass and held her hand. Instead, he like touches it and just shatters it, which is dangerous on it. No one's wearing safety goggles. Everyone's got glass in their hair.
Right.
So he's they like kiss, and you get that like final like moment of intimacy between the two, because you never see anything. They don't touch at all. Like, he touches him a little bit. It's like losing it in the apartment, the first scene together. Yeah. But there's no intimacy. It's just like, please don't freak out. I'm kind of gonna touch you a little bit. So I really like that moment.
Yeah. Let's see. It's a couple, like, I didn't have any specific notes, but there's just kind of some transition scenes. Bumstead is informed that Walensky's dead and that the captain wants to see him. The strangers all show up at the police department and start to put everyone to sleep. And Bumstead, we will learn, frees John and the captain gets killed. I mean, it's just sorry.
It's sort of like a slow, like everything's starting to unravel. Like
Yeah,
enough
yeah.
people know they're starting to come out and be very obvious about what they're doing. They're
Mm-hmm.
not
Not being
mincing
as
around or hiding in the shadows like
yeah,
they have been. They're like assaulting a police station. He's
yeah,
like, oh, he's gone. And they just kill the guy.
yeah.
They just murder the chief.
It's funny, like this is the equivalent scene in the Matrix where Neo and Trinity take on that office building and just like
Yeah.
shoot the place all up. And this one does it with like, they put a couple people to sleep and they kill one person, but it's just,
Yeah.
but I
But
think
they're all both sets are both wearing all black. So.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Then so John and Bumstead are now like teamed up, and they go to visit Schraber, and they find him in the pool, and he explains that this is where only place I can come to be, and not
Because
where
they hate moisture again.
yeah, reiterates that, and something I noticed here that Schraber or Kiefer Sutherland is playing Schraber here because he's got a gun. He's he needs John to come with him because he's basically been tortured. If I don't do this, they're going to kill me, that sort of thing. But I also understand like it's part of his ultimate plan. He needs to get Schraber or get Murdoch John, back to the underground. He needs him to come with him for the next part of his plan. But Kiefer Sutherland playing this almost like a early Jack Bauer because he's got a gun. Yeah. He's yelling at this guy like, "I need you to come with me." It's almost Jack Bauer, yeah, but still with that weird like tone.
Cadence. There's all that monologuing here. That's what just like ice picked in my brain. Like, I thanks for the information, Kiefer, but figure out a different way to deliver it because I would have rather read it on a scroll, screening down thing, the Star Wars style, than to have him deliver it like that.
Fair, yeah. I didn't care for it either. And this is kind of a setup here because Bumstead is with John, and so he gets the drop on Schraber and gets so now it's 2 against 1 basically, and they take Schraber with them and they want him to tell them how to get to Shell Beach. And really like this sequence of the movie. I like that these 3 and they get on a boat to get there, but they go by car, then they go by boat, and they finally make their way there. And the entire time, Schraber is kind of protesting and refusing to do it. And one big difference, theatrical versus director's cut is, and the director's cut here, John uses force or uses torture to urge Schraber to do what they want. Like it almost looks like, I couldn't tell, he's doing something to his head without touching him using telekinesis. I thought maybe he was heating up his glasses because I thought the glasses kind of turned red.
Something looked weird. Yeah.
Okay.
There was, especially like his eye afterwards, because it was already kind of droopy.
Yeah.
But there's something else about it, like a little bit more exaggerated.
Okay.
So I didn't know what was going on with that.
I couldn't tell if he was like squeezing without touching, like squeezing his head to make him.
I just like the fact that
but
Bumstead is in the front just going like,
yeah, he gives him a look like, what?
He's like, do you got it? Like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
It's like, at this point,
we've come too far.
In for a pound.
Yeah. Yeah, and they make their way to this, Shell Beach, and they walk into a room, and there's just another billboard advertisement thing with Shell Beach on it, and it's like, Schraber says there is no beach, there's no ocean.
It's just a big instead of a billboard, it's just like a poster on like full wall size poster.
Yeah. So I like how John refuses to accept that that's all there is, so he starts to rip off this poster. And then they start to just go to town on the brick and stone, and then just sledgehammering away until they can blast John blast a hole in the wall, and we reveal space, just a sea of stars. And
this was a moment that really like clinched it for me. It's like, okay, this was a solid movie because they were not afraid to take this psychological noir film literally to the freaking edge of space. Like it went from a noir movie to a Doctor Who episode, and I was there for it. I'm like, you committed, you stuck the landing, you busted the wall, fucking stars. That's all you see is stars. You're not like It's not like another wall. It's not like an impenetrable cliff. It's like nothing that's like a physical barrier.
Yeah.
It's the vastness of space. I'm like, okay, these are actual aliens messing
Yeah.
around with us. This is, again, the director's cut the whole time. Didn't have any idea about the strangers came and this and that.
Okay.
No preamble. So
Yeah.
I was like, yes. Like, yes, you did it. You
Yeah.
didn't shy away from making this like a hard sci-fi movie on
Yeah.
top of everything else.
Right. No, I love this revelation, and it's like the city. And I don't think this is exactly when we see it, but we'll find out that the city is just this floating. It's like Asgard, it just
Yeah.
this floating city. I guess there's a force field that keeps atmosphere in and everything, but yeah, like you said, they had the balls to not like
Yeah.
it's not set on Earth,
It's not like, oh, we're in a bubble. This is a post-apocalyptic zone. It's like we're on the back. It's like there's actually a Doctor Who episode like this,
Right.
where like the entire London is on the back of a giant
yeah.
space whale, and they're zapping its brain to make it fly.
God, that
And
one's
they're like, it's all, Doctor Who's always got
sure.
the ethical element to it.
Mhm.
Hey, let's stop zapping the brain.
Yeah.
Whale flies a lot faster.
Mm.
Hey, he's happy now. He wants
Yeah.
to do this. So this could have been that. Like, they could have been on the back of a giant space whale, and I'd
Yeah.
have been like, I buy it. Cool. But thank you for taking me on this trip.
Oh yeah. Then let's see, the strangers show up. They've got Emma kind of as a hostage, and shit starts to hit the fan, and Bumstead takes on Bruce Spence, Mr.
Tall boy.
Yeah.
We'll call
And
him Mr. PBR because he's a tall boy.
nice. They go out the window, they go out the airlock,
Yep.
and float out into space, and yeah, no more Bumstead. And that
What was
really
cool is they
bummed
went
me
through
out.
like this transition bubble.
That was a
There
force
like
field. Yeah.
The force field keeping the oxygen in so they would
Yeah.
live. But it was nice little to have that moment of like, oh, now he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now he's gone.
That really, like, I did not want to lose him. Like, it just, that one hurt.
Yeah.
At a certain point, I was kind of like, I wish that had been Dr. Schreiber
Oh, yeah.
instead. I wish they would have swapped places. But then it's like, okay, Schreiber,
Well, we need him for the
right.
denouement, like the final bit. So
Yeah.
he's like integral to that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I really like Bumstead. Was bummed that he was
Mhm.
now space junk.
Then Mr. Han is able now to put John to sleep, and I don't know if I understand that fully.
I feel like if anything, it's because he has now kind of attuned to his brain.
That could be.
And
Yeah.
so he can actually, it's like almost he can access his frequency now.
Okay.
Like before that, he was on a different frequency.
Mm.
He gelled enough to where he could put him to sleep that way. Instead of overpowering him, just sort of like slid in like a security backdoor, like
Yeah.
like a security system.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
I guess that.
Yeah. So they take him to the underground, and we see I think Mr. Book, he's the main guy in charge, is talking about how they're going to this is going to be the final time that they freeze the city. Like, this is their ultimate, they're going to get what they need from John in order to
Become more
them
whatever.
carry out their end game.
Yeah, we figured it out. So after this, we're just going to scrap the whole thing and like burn it to the ground and like just whatever.
Yeah, that feels a little flimsy to me, but it's fine. I mean, we're coming to the end of the movie, so we need to start wrapping things up. So it makes sense.
They have to raise the stakes even more, because
Yeah.
it's not just like, okay,
Yeah.
these guys are going to be more powerful. It's like, okay, now every human is going to die.
Right. I love seeing Dr. Schreiber waddle into this scene, because they've got him in this weird contraption where it's like a standing wheelchair that he's imprisoned in.
I had this sort of, not a revelation. It wasn't like, oh no, but there was a moment where it clicked, where styles were merging that made me feel like the design styles for like the set and like the clothes and everything. It was like someone took H.R. Geiger and smushed it with Wes Anderson.
Okay. Yeah.
There's like that
and
like
Edward
really
Scissorhands.
dark, creepy gothic. That is very, but it's also got a very like specific stylized, like there's a tone, there's a color palette, there's everything that Wes Anderson does, but it's also like dark and creepy. So it has that like H.R. Geiger sinister, like almost obscene level of like discomfort
Yeah.
mixed with this like really crazy stylized vibe. So that was just like, that's a really funny comparison I made, but I hit it. I'm like, that's exactly what this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
I like it. At this point, the Dr. Schraber is told to do this final imprint on John, like give him the treatment he should have had at the start of the movie, so that they can kind of wipe his mind and start
Yeah.
him over or whatever. And or they want to turn him into one of them is really what they want, because then all their brains will be able to link up and they'll all be able to know and do what John can do.
Yeah.
So okay. And as Schraber's about to do this, he takes a syringe that John had pocketed earlier with his
earlier kid memories, like his
yeah. And it was the syringe that
that's what it was.
Schraber would have given him earlier.
He made a specific syringe separately that told him everything.
Yes.
And he kept saying like, I can help you. I can make this better, but you have to let me stick a needle in your forehead. Come on, bro. Just be cool.
Yeah.
Like he cocktailed this together to make this work, but he's like, I'm not letting you anywhere near me, you little hunchback. And so there was that moment. So he finally did it, and like, boop.
And now, we go into this brain, this memory trip through memories and everything, and each one of them, Kiefer Sutherland is there, like he's the ice cream man, he's the teacher, he's the firefighter, and all these memories that John has, and in each one he's telling him, a little piece of the information, so that we learn that through his memories, John has now been raised or grew up with all this information and started learning the telepathy and the telekinesis and all that stuff at a earlier age. So now
it's like a Matrix brain dump.
It exactly is. Yeah.
He uploaded Kung Fu.
Yeah. I know Kung Fu.
Yeah.
And so when John wakes up, it's like this badass rise to power. Yeah. He transcends
into like godhood. He just like, I can now control everything.
Yeah.
You guys are and then he just tear asses throughout that place, and just, he now is like the central figure. Like he is the pinnacle of these two societies.
And he's still like, he has to fight Mr. Book, which they're flying around and hurling each other. And I think the first time around, I think it worked for me. The second time I was a little bit like, I wish they were able to visualize the powers in the fight a little bit better than just hurling people around or
wiggly air.
There's a little there's not much here to this fight, I think.
But also I get that, but also I think at this point they're like, we're pushing like almost like 2 hours,
right?
Whatever. So maybe we should wrap it up. And so I guess at that point we're like, okay, get a little heavy, so let's kind of like push through this. So
but it's also very Matrix or Neo versus Agent Smith in that way of like their final confrontation sort of fight.
Also, I think it would have done his transition or ascension a little disservice if he had a little bit of struggle with Book, who was like, the highest of the order. After that, it was just like walking through a field with a scythe, just taking people down. Yeah. Building buildings and killing strangers and all that.
Yeah. But I mean, the shop gets wrecked. I mean, everything just gets pretty much annihilated. People are falling into pits and, just death and carnage everywhere. But I love seeing the final killing stroke or whatever on Mr. Book. He stabs him with his own knife, and this like parasite crawls out of his body and dies. And I really like that, idea of showing again this alien parasite thing that's inside these guys. So yeah. And kind of as John is like, okay, now I can do anything, and he talks to Schraber. He's like, you're saying I can do anything. I can remake this world any way I want. And they're talking about that. And then as he does that, John builds an ocean. He builds a beach. He cleans up the streets a little bit and starts to set things right. And then he actually takes this disc that this world is floating on and rotates it enough to where the sun will now,
Yeah.
because the sun is there, but it's on the underside of the
Mhm.
world. So he just rotates this place enough to get
Because
sunlight.
there was mentioned at one point that the strangers also didn't like light. They didn't like moisture. They didn't
Right.
like
Yeah.
they didn't like light. So
Yeah.
that's why it was always dark in Dark City.
Right. Yeah. Um, and then yeah, it's at a certain point they talked about Emma will is going to be injected and given new memories, and she'll become Anna. And I think it's interesting that they committed to that. You
Yeah.
know, when John finds out that Emma is no more, but Anna is out there, and so he now knowing that, maybe their love is more powerful than memories, he has a chance to meet her again for the first time. So
Yeah. And so he meets her at the pier at Shell Beach.
yeah, and I love that that's how it ends. So
Yeah. Ends on a nice little like bright daylight, romantic little
yeah,
like happy note.
yeah,
After
you
all this
get
like weird dark
sunlight for the
bleakness.
first, yeah, and that's Dark City. I mean,
Yeah, that's it.
it's yeah, we'll get into our overall thoughts and ratings and stuff, but first I want to do the go through the most villainous moment and most heroic. So can you any standouts for what you think the most villainous moment in the movie is?
This planet, these people, they are nothing to me.
You were made to be ruled.
The universe's power. Pure, unstoppable power. Come to me, son of Jor-El. Kneel before Zod. And I am that force. I am that power.
In the end, you will always kneel.
Kneel before your master.
I think it was when Hand was all like jacked up on John Juice and when killed May, because she was a helpful person. She was a mom. There was like a really like there's a lot of emotional connection to her as far as like the story. And he just like, yeah, I'm just gonna kill you. It's like it's just like a senselessness to her like death.
Right.
Like you could just wipe her memory. No, I'm gonna turn you into another notch in the bedpost for this alleged serial killer. And thought that was really unfortunate.
Yeah.
And she had a kid there. I mean, there was a lot of like that was a sad death.
For sure. I definitely think that is definitely the most villainous. I gotta give a shout out to the creepy kid who at one point in one of the memories or whatever, he was actually the one scrawling the spirals in all these victims.
Yeah.
So
it was dark. Like, yeah, they all chipped in. It was a group effort.
Yeah. That was another difference in two versions. The director's cut had played way more emphasis on the spirals. I mean, all the victims had the spirals on them, but like his fingerprints had spirals and like that.
I had one little moment where I was like, man, they use that spiral a lot. And then there was one point where someone says this fits together like a jigsaw. And I was like, is this where they got a little of the tone for Scream? I mean, not Scream, a Saw.
Yeah, Saw.
Because Jigsaw, all spirals.
Yeah.
I can definitely see like the writer director of that being like a real Dark City fan because of the dark noir vibe to it. If that wasn't a connection, I would be surprised.
No, I think you might be onto something there. What about most heroic?
I believe there's a hero in all of us.
I just finally know what I have to do.
That keeps us honest.
I'm here to fight for truth and justice in the American way.
Gives us strength.
You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards.
Makes us noble.
And I know in my heart that it's right.
I don't know. I guess, because then they have like the big drag out fights, and
I was kind of torn with this one.
He wasn't really a hero. Like
Sure.
he was kind of like a guy who just got put in a position, but at the end I mean, I guess you could say one of his heroic moments was when he was putting himself in a position to see whether he's going to kill, it comes back to May, kill her, and then he just walked away.
Yeah.
He just walked away from it. He's like, this is not me. He's letting his own internal barometer dictate his actions rather than what he thinks he should be or his being told he is.
Yeah.
So that's kind of standing up true to yourself. I think it's pretty heroic.
Right on. I've got to give it to Schraber with that final injection, that cocktail that he made, and giving John all the pieces and information that he needed. That worked for me on a much better level, I guess, the second time around watching it. I don't know why. I just really, really dug that choice that he made. So, and then seeing it that second time and realizing, I think that was his plan the whole time. The first time I just thought, oh, he's just like, this is last ditch effort to try and, maybe save himself. And then maybe finally kind of turns good at the end. But then the second time I was like, oh no, he's kind of a good guy. He
was
just
there the
has
whole
to
day,
do
He was
bad things, a lot of the time. So,
yeah.
But let's give your overall thoughts and throw a rating at it out of 5 stars.
I'd say thoughts. I really enjoyed this movie. Like I like the writing. It was kind of simplistic, not simplistic, but like it kind of it wasn't overly talky. There was like a lot of you got what you needed. You kind of got in, you got it out. The sets were the same way. There's a economy to the movie that kind of like lets you sort of like fill in the blanks yourself, and I really enjoyed that. And again, the way I watched it, not having any idea of the backbone of it, I just came away feeling like that was a really good sit, like strong. Like there, other than like maybe one or two like weird little plot things, and then that thing, I would give it like a 4.5, like almost all the way, because it's just I would recommend this movie to anybody who likes movies, not just sci-fi, but likes movies.
I mean, I was dreading this one. When I watched the trailer, I was like, man, this does not feel like our kind of movie. It might be a movie I'd want to, I might like, but I didn't think it was going to go flow right on the podcast. I just didn't think this was going to be a movie that was going to be fun to talk about. So I really I thought, man, maybe we did the wrong thing and put this one on the list. So, but then when I sat down and watched it, I was instantly drawn in by that detective noir story. I love stuff like Maltese Falcon and, so that appealed to me in a big bad way, and just getting sucked into the idea of a noir detective thriller mixed with this interesting sci-fi that I'd never really seen before. Just totally worked for me. Scene by scene, I got so wrapped up in it that, like I said, I had to stop taking notes that first time about 20 minutes in, and just had to watch the movie.
Actually, one of the last notes I wound up taking was, and this is even funnier compared to like I didn't know about the voiceover in the beginning, because I said like, man, these stranger people remind me of like the Space Guild from Dune, because they're like very pale and black, and I made it like, do the spice give them their magic powers and that sort of thing. And I didn't even know about the talking head like
gotcha
narration at the very beginning, which is also a very 84 Dune. So I like that, like, little parallel there.
The only thing I would say about the two versions at this point would be, I don't think it's incredibly important which version you watch. I don't think they're different enough to warrant a director's cut. Honestly, I think you could have had deleted scenes and summed up what you wanted to say about the two versions. So I kind of think it's whatever version you watch is perfect. Just watch whatever version you want to watch. Don't worry about seeking out one or the other, just because I honestly think that you'll like whichever version you watch, and it's not going to make much difference. That's how I feel. And I did notice watching it the second time, it does lack a little something. There's maybe a little less rewatchability, at least in a 3-day span, I guess I should say.
I can watch this every few months and like be cool with it, sort of like unpack it and like see the little bits as they unfold. I like the director's cut. I think I'm glad it exists, because just the way I like to consume movies, this was right up my alley for like the way it chooses to unveil the plot and keep you sort of in the dark as you go. I'm really glad that this was the version I watched.
Right on. So all that being said, I think I'm at a 4. I really dug this movie, and I think it's definitely worth a watch for just about anybody. I would definitely recommend this. So yeah, I think it averages out to a 4.25 for the two of us. So I think that's very fitting.
All right, that sounds pretty cool.
So yeah, I think you got some shows to plug.
Well, if you want to dig into my old stuff, my co-host of mine we did the Mogwai Minute a couple of years ago, where we did a minute-by-minute breakdown of both Gremlins movies, as well as some one-shot reviews and talkings of a lot of Arnie 80s movies. So those are a lot of fun to get into. I have a new project coming up that actually needs listener help. It's called Legends in the Making. And it's 100% user listener submitted stories about their brushes with the supernatural, cryptids, alien abduction. You got family demon, you got family angels. I don't know. You bumped into a serial killer one time on the bus. You bought a cat from them. If you have a story that sort of brush up against the weird like that, or has a firsthand account, we're putting together this podcast where we're going to basically just like highlight these things, because my mind is that these things happening right now in our present day are the seeds of folklore or legend, like 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now. So getting them out there in the public ear and having them heard and like talked about, I feel like that's just kind of pushing that process along. So yeah, Legends in the Making. We're looking to start releasing maybe around Halloween. So I guess a lot of our initial stories would be on the scary side. So if you got anything fun, anything cool, shoot it our way, and we'll put the address and the email address in the show notes.
Very cool. Been eagerly waiting to find out what this new secret show that you and Johnny been working on.
First that is not TV or movie or minute related podcast either of us have ever done. No, she used to do that Hold My Beer show that was kind of like just talking with her friend.
Sure.
But this has got to be more structure to it. But yeah, my co-host is Johnny Powers. I almost called her Johnny Marie because of her middle name. But yeah, we've known each other for years. We're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So if you have something that you think fits that bill, like we're open to anything. So just shoot it our way and we'll give it a read.
Very cool. Yeah, that's I'll enjoy that peripherally being able to see that process. You guys working on that show and stuff. So that's exciting.
And actually, Travis is the first one to hear this pitch outside of my girlfriend and a few other people, because I teased it on in the chat the other day. And, he's the first one to get the actual breakdown of it. So he's in a very hallowed position right now.
Yeah, don't worry, I won't.
It's
I won't give it up.
We have all the socials
until the
now
episode
for it,
drops. So
it's all good.
So let's see. I think what we have coming up next. I want to say. So the next thing we've got is Batman Mr. Freeze SubZero, the animated movie.
I like that. It was good.
Yeah, I remember. I think this was one where the animation style had changed after the update. So I think it has that new look for Mr. Freeze and everything. But that'll be a fun one to check out. So that's what we'll be doing next. And I hope Patrick will be feeling better by then. I definitely know what that neck pain is like, so nobody's going through there. But I think that's gonna do it for this one. George, thank you again so much for joining and being ready. And
it's been a while since I've dusted off my mic.
Yeah, right on. I'm glad finally got you on the show. So that's a long time in the making. But yeah,
I'm signed up for something else later, but I can't remember what it is at the top of my head.
Yeah, I feel like you picked stuff like way down the line.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what the spreadsheet was, so I just started picking movies I liked. I'm like, that's 6 years from now.
Yeah.
Like, okay, my bad.
Although
I'll still do it, but
it's funny saying that you have the next one right after Batman Mr. Freeze. It's the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Hasselhoff TV sort of pilot.
Oh wow! Then I forgot that movie existed, let alone I signed up to do it.
Yeah.
So I'll have to find a link for that movie, because where are you going to find that?
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure something out. Yep. All right. That'll do it for this one. So stay safe out there, citizens.
You wanted more, and it's here. Batman and Mr. Freeze, SubZero. Deep within the frozen Arctic.
Nora!
The love of Victor Freeze was shattered.
There aren't any deceased donors that match. Then we'll have to use a live donor.
Hi, Dad. Sorry I'm late.
Hang on.
An all-new feature-length adventure. Batman animation beyond anything you've seen before.
Let me go!
I want my daughter found.
Don't worry, sir. We're on it.
Brace yourself. If I'm not back in time, go without me.
What? Wait!
Look out! Barbara!
SubZero. From Warner Brothers Family Entertainment. Own it. Only on video.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Find the show on Facebook and Twitter at Real Comic Heroes. All music and audio are the property of their respective creators.